I'd like to start this morning by asking a question. Have you ever felt completely normal on the outside and looked perfectly fine to everyone else, but you felt like you were carrying something so heavy that no one else could see? Well, that was me. I was strong, capable, high functioning. I would say, most people would say I was successful, but I just felt like I was getting smaller and smaller with each passing day. And to the point till I literally felt like I was carrying these boulders. I call this the invisible weight. I started carrying this weight from a really young age. My biological father sexually molested me from the time that I was 5 years old until I was 12, when I told my mom what was happening. And I said I wasn't going to cry, and I've practiced this a bunch of times without crying. But it's okay to cry. In a world where everyone wants you to show up as your best self, it's okay to be kind of not together. But from such an early age, when the people who are supposed to protect you don't, and you need that safety, your body craves that safety, I found that safety in control. And I wanted to start controlling everything. I wanted to be good at everything. I wanted to be successful at everything. I love a good checklist. I want to plan everything down to the very last thing, like bathroom breaks. I'm doing much better at being okay if things don't go according to plan. But for me to not plan is like a strategy for failure. And I found such safety when I can control things. And I realized that that was a safety mechanism of something that I learned so early. But doing all of those things and feeling like I had to be in control of everything made it look like I was really successful on the outside, but on the inside, I was kind of falling apart. I was worn out. I was exhausted. I was very unhealthy. I was 39 years old, and they thought I had had a heart attack. Thankfully, I had not, but all the signs looked like that. And I also realized that my mental health was just not faring well. And so I needed to make a change. So that is what brought me to functional medicine. And I started studying functional medicine because I had been going to practitioners in the traditional medicine space for probably over 10 years, saying something's not right. But they were like, we don't see anything. You look fine. Nothing's showing up. And it kind of starts making you think, am I the one that's crazy? But I knew that something was wrong. I just didn't know what it was. So that led me down the journey to start studying functional medicine. And I really began to realize that in order to heal, I didn't need to do more. I needed to just be and realize that God really did design the body perfectly. And that the things that I was experiencing and the symptoms that I was dealing with was just a source of communication. I just needed to figure out what that communication was. And that's what functional medicine did for me, and that's what I help others do for themselves. I realized very far along in my journey, it probably took me a lot longer than it takes a lot of other people, that I was kind of stuck in a trauma loop. That I kept wanting to do more and doing the same thing, but wanted to get different results. And I just kind of couldn't get off that hamster wheel. I mean, has anybody ever felt like you're kind of trapped, right? And so I really understood that I needed to tap into my own nervous system and work on that for me to be successful in my own healing journey and to help others. And I really had to get comfortable with just being able to sit outside and not do anything, which is extremely difficult from a recovering multitasker. Like, I'm the person who wanted to watch TV, but I always had to be folding clothes, or always had to be checking my email, or scrolling social media or something, right? Like, I just couldn't just not do. And I had to get comfortable with going outside, taking my shoes off, and just looking up at the clouds and be like, those dishes will happen later. Somebody else maybe can do the dishes, right? Something like that. I had to just get really comfortable with not having to do anything in order for me to heal. So I started looking at things through a new lens when I started down my functional medicine journey. And I really started to see that I had a lot of patients who maybe were diagnosed with something like maybe high blood pressure, maybe high cholesterol, diabetes. They were on 3 to 5 meds. That's kind of average in today's society. But they were doing all the things that their practitioners told them to do, but they could barely get out of bed, or they didn't have anything left at the end of the day. And it really got me thinking that our traditional system isn't helping people thrive, right? We're doing all the right things, but we're not thriving. And I also found there were people like me who weren't sick enough to be diagnosed with something. We're just kind of hanging out, but we know something's not right. We're just not feeling our best self. And so I saw this gap start to happen between the people who maybe weren't diagnosable, or maybe they were diagnosable, but just had a very small issue, to the people who had lots of energy and were doing all the things that they wanted to do. Like, that gap was just starting to get wider and wider. And traditional medicine does a great job of keeping us alive. I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter if I can help you recover from a heart attack if you die from said heart attack. So traditional medicine has a very big place in our society to help us get to a certain point. But I was never taught as a pharmacist how to get people to thrive. Just wasn't in the curriculum. So that's what I do now, is I show patients that there is a roadmap to getting to the point of thriving, and I call that the Bowers balance. A Promise survey showed that 1 out of every 3 adults report fatigue in a 2-week period of time. How many people can relate to just being tired and exhausted? Yeah, me too. Like, I want to hold up both hands, for real, because that's where I was. And we're not alone. right? 1 out of 3. But we have normalized being exhausted to where we're all just walking around saying, well, that's just life. That's just old age. And I want to come and say, no, it's not. We have I want to be 85 and still hiking to all the waterfalls that I want to go to. I'm okay if it's a little slower, but I still want to do it. And I see so many patients that just can't go and do what they want to do. In helping patients, though, I really realized that healing isn't about doing more. It's actually about doing things in the right order. And when you have had some type of trauma in your life, you kind of just start getting stuck in this survival mode, and we automatically just want to do more, right? Like everyone's like, oh, I want to get healthy. What do? We sign up for the gym and we go to that HIIT training and we're going to go show up every day and we're going to go do a marathon or a triathlon. We're going to go from couch to 5K in 90 days or something like that, right? We just want to push more. But when our nervous system, when it's dysregulated, it's not about doing more. It's about reducing that load, restoring the body's systems, getting them back in check, and then working on rebuilding to that resilience where we are thriving. And a lot of it is surrounded by dropping that invisible weight. And you can call it crushing it, you can call it breaking the chains, whatever terminology that resonates with you, it's basically the same thing. So I tell my patients that the Bowers balance is like a GPS in a navigation system. There are lots of different routes to get to the same destination. And all I'm doing is I'm just helping you see the roadblocks that help you thrive or that may be blocking your situation. But you're still in that driver's seat and making the determination of what's best for your individual situation. So in the Bowers balance, I work on stabilizing your nervous system. We're going to open up all the body's natural drainage pathways, because if crap can't get out, well, crap can't get out, right? And it just starts to resonate and cause more problems. And then we work on rebuilding the body's functions and getting things functioning the way God designed and intended. If you don't remember anything from this talk, I might be a little offended, but I'd probably get over it. But I want you to remember that you are not broken. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, I haven't had something traumatic like that happen to me. I probably would beg to differ. We did all go through a pandemic. There were definitely times where I felt uncertain about what the future was during that period. We were isolated from loved ones during that period. We certainly didn't have control during that period, right? So trauma can be anything that that you felt unsafe during, okay? 1 out of every 2 marriages ends in divorce, and I have been through a divorce, and it was traumatic. It was very, very difficult. So, I think that everyone can relate to something in their life that they weren't happy with. And that's kind of what I would say trauma is. And just because you have experienced that does not mean that you're broken. And just because you are having symptoms, it doesn't mean that things are out of control. It's your body trying to tell you what it needs help with. And we just need to start listening to it and adapting. And it very well could be that part of your story is that you have an invisible weight that you need to work on breaking, dropping, whatever resonates with you. But if you want to go from surviving to thriving, you definitely have to address the nervous system. It cannot be ignored. We have to work on crushing that boulder, and we have to work on navigating the root of your unique body to help encourage the things that support you and discourage the things that are no longer supporting you. And then you also can work on being thriving in your life. If you're still here with me during this talk, you've made it to the end, then I know something resonated with you. You can scan the QR code. That'll take you to my website where you can make a complimentary discovery call and we can chat about your unique situation. You can find me on any of those social media channels. And I appreciate you giving me the time today. But I would like to wrap up my story. So I told you, that I was sexually molested. At the age of 12 years old, I told my mom about the situation. She immediately, got police involved. We were removed from our household and sent into hiding because my dad was also very abusive. 2 years later, we did have to go through the court system, and he had to stand trial, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. He only served 2.5. And when I was a senior in high school, I decided that I was going to face him. And so I got in my car, and I was going to drive to the prison, which was in Columbia, South Carolina. And I was going to face him. And on the way, I got into a car accident. So I took that as God saying, no, now's not the time. So when I was a sophomore in college, I decided again, that was one of my biggest fears, was facing him. And I was like, I have got to do this. And so I made plans to do this, and it was in January. He was out of prison at this point, had moved to Virginia, and had gotten remarried. And I was in contact. I said, I'm going to come and visit. And so the night before, I drove to Virginia. The night before I was supposed to meet him, a blizzard legitimately occurred. The front of my Volkswagen Fox was covered in snow. I did meet with him. He's never apologized for what happened. However, he was drunk when he was around me. So I know that because he had to have alcohol to be around me, he knows that what he did was wrong. And because of my relationship with my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and him forgiving me of my sins, I can certainly forgive him, my father, for what he did to me. But that also doesn't mean that I want to have a relationship with him now. So I have forgiven him, but he is not in my life currently and probably won't be. He's never met my children or any of that. So that kind of wraps up my story, and hope that answers any questions for you. And I appreciate your time today. Thank you.